Hi, this is Marta from Ruby Soup with Pearl Juice, and today I am bringing you a monthly recommendations video. Monthly Recommendations is a Goodreads group run by Trina from Between Chapters. It's kind of like this group where every month there's a new theme and we kind of recommend books based off of that. And the theme for December is New Authors to You 2017. So I'm going to leave all those links down below, and do check out Trina's channel. She's a brilliant booktuber. And I'll also kind of talk about the ground rules that I set for myself when I picked the writers for this video. I read a lot of books that had been on my to be read pile for years and years. So even if I perhaps read like the first book by a certain author this year, then if I had known about them before this year, I did not count them. So I took only authors that I read something by them this year, and this was the year I also kind of like heard about them for the first time. That being said, let's get busy. So the first one I recommend is kind of like a local author of sorts. She's not all that well known, but either way, her name is Kaiser Nordland. She is a comic artist, but also an artist. And this is a fanzine called Becoming an Ex-Mormon. I stumbled across this comic when I was at the Stockholm Comic Festival, and I just happened to come across this on one of their tables, and I bought this and I read it. I really liked it. I have a full review of this from my blog. I'll link that below. And this is, like I said, this is a fanzine, so it's kind of like self-published of sorts. But it's actually really funny, and it's really insightful, and its own voices ex-Mormon presentation. So if you can, I highly recommend that you seek this out. It's here. I'll kind of like show a little bit. It's kind of like these kind of storytelling. She's drawn it herself, and she says that it's like based on her own experiences as well as others. I can't really show the cover because it's she has an exposed breast, so YouTube would probably flag this otherwise. But yeah. Another author, surprisingly enough, that I only discovered this year was Rupi Kaur. I read about her poetry collection Milk and Honey in Literary Hub. They were kind of like recommended it as new feminist literature. And I bought this at Alibris. It was kind of like on a half price sorts. And I read it this year. I really liked it. I read it in 2 days. I admit that there's flaws with this. It's not like the greatest poetry of all time. But she's really sincere. She really hits the nail on a lot of things. And I especially like this one poem that she had about writing, where she said that the thing about my writing is that I don't know if it's healing me or destroying me. And actually, as an aspiring poet myself, I really relate to that, because I often feel like I do have this drive to tell stories, but it's such a competitive field that you kind of feel like it's destroying your soul a little bit. So yeah, but that's neither here nor there. But I check her out if you see her stuff. It's really easy to read, and perhaps not the greatest poetry in the world, but worth the read anyway. I actually discovered a lot of poets this year. I also read Morgan Parker's There Are More Beautiful Things Than Beyonce. And I hadn't heard of Parker before, but I read a review of There Are More Beautiful Things Than Beyonce in Beach Media. And I came across that collection at a library and I bought it. And it's so good. I have reviewed this collection. I'll leave the link down below. But Morgan Parker is definitely like a poet that I'm going to, like, after I read that collection, I just knew I'm going to read everything that she publishes. I am really trying to get my hands on Others People's Comfort Give Me... No, sorry, I think it's Others People Comfort Keep Me Up at Night. I am dying to get my hands on that. I am dying for her to come out with a third collection. I'm just going to read everything by her after I read this collection. I also discovered a Swedish poet called Abode, and he wrote a poetry collection called Exilin's Dilemma. And that was fantastic. Its own voices refugee and torture survivor stories. So if you see it like in a bookstore or if you see it in a library, borrow it, buy it. It's really short and it's really powerful. I have a review for this. I'll link that down below. And I really hope that he publishes more because he's like Morgan Parker. I would definitely buy any other collection that he puts out because his poems were just that good. I have also reviewed on this channel Kyung-ju Kim, a South Korean poet. I am really looking forward to getting more collections, my hands on more of his collections in the future. I did a review for I'm a Season That Does Not Exist in the World. You can probably find it. I'll see if I can link it down below. But he's another poet that I really liked. He is quite kind of provocative and a lot more rougher than a lot of these other poets. He uses very vulgar language. But nevertheless, I really like the way he kind of used language and provocative images to talk about existential issues. So I really hope that I'll be able to read some of his other work. As for Novelist, I also discovered this year the Nigerian novelist Ayobami Abedao. I probably said that wrong. But I read this book this year. I really liked it. It is definitely one of my favorite reads of the year. And I actually was even lucky enough to get this book signed when she was here in Sweden. I will try to zoom this in on the camera. I'm going to talk about this more in my December wrap-up, and I might even film a independent review of this book. It tackles like a lot of themes, and a lot of booktubers have talked about this book, but one thing that I kind of thought was interesting is that this book, like the main character Yeida in this book, she's really lonely, and she talks very often about feeling kind of isolated and alone, like in her family and alone in her marriage. And a lot of reviewers didn't really bring this up. So yeah, I might actually do a review on this because I kind of want to talk about that issue a little bit that a lot of other people didn't really pick up on. Or maybe they did pick up on it, but they just didn't mention it in the review. So yeah, keep your eyes out for my thoughts on this. And lastly but not leastly, I discovered Brian K. Vaughan, who writes the Saga series. I am waiting for Volume 8 to come out. It has already come out in America, but for some reason, Sweden is waiting until January to sell it. I don't know why. Why are they doing this to me? But they have decided to do that. So, but this series it's wonderfully diverse. It's really thought-provoking. The characters are great, and yeah, I just love this series, and I just really love what Brian K. Vaughan has brought into the world, and I'll definitely keep a lookout for more of his stuff in the future. Yeah, so that was all my recommendations for new authors to me that I wanted to share with you guys. What authors did you discover this year? Comment down below. I would love to hear some new recommendations. Click the like button, subscribe. If not, take care anyway.